All right, what's up, guys? Good morning.
Good morning.
How's it
Happy
going?
Wednesday.
How's it
Happy
going?
Wednesday. Morning,
Hey,
Dallas. Shante.
Good morning. Good morning.
all right, let's get into it. I'm a little under the weather, so excuse my my voice, but we're
Good
gonna roll
morning,
with it.
everyone.
Morning, morning. Hang on a sec. Let me pull. Can you guys see my screen? The scripts?
Yeah.
You
I'm
see it?
trying to pull it up from my desktop. I'm having issues with my internet connectivity, but yeah, it's hard to see from the phone, so bear with me. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. But for Dallas and Leo, you can see my
Mm-hmm.
screen.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay.
Yes.
Good deal. Let's see. All right. The camera, man. Gotta get this camera fixed. There we go. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Let's dive in. Okay, so script practice. We are going to talk today about circle prospecting. So, what is circle prospecting? Why do we do it? Um, Circle prospecting is a great way. Basically, what is circle prospecting? It's if we take a house and we draw a circle around it and we call all of the neighbors in that area. These scripts can also be used for door knocking neighborhoods as well. So think about this as a way to you can call neighborhoods. So if you list a house and let's say it gets multiple offers and it's a hot area, there's tons of people that wanted the property that couldn't get it. This is a good way to call the rest of the neighborhood to pick up another listing. Typically, when one house sells, another one or two sell in that neighborhood as well within about 30 to 60 days. So this could be a fantastic way to pick up additional listings in a neighborhood where you sell a house. We can also utilize this script. We'll tweak it a little bit. And there's another script in here I'll show you. But let's say you have a buyer that's like, oh, I love this subdivision. We want to be in that subdivision. This would be a good way to call them and or to call the subdivision and let people know you have a buyer that wants to move into the area. Would they consider selling? So does that make sense for everybody? So we used to do, when I ran my team, the net group, we used to do a high volume of calls on circle prospecting. We'd sell a lot of houses and pick up a lot of listings from circle prospecting. We'd crank out hundreds of calls a day. We would use auto dialers, which are no longer legal. So don't use an auto dialer. People are still selling them, but because of the new regulations that just came out a couple of months ago, you don't want to use robo dialers to do this anymore. You have to hand dial old school, unfortunately, but it still works. So
Yeah.
let's get
And
into
Michael,
it. I'm
there
gonna run
seems to
through.
be a way to do that in Broad Trail. Um, so you can call your leads directly from the system. Pretty much, yeah, directly from your CRM,
Yeah, so you could do that. Call it directly from the CRM, single dialing.
single
Um,
dial.
People ask too, where do you get lists? So there are websites that you can buy data from. One is mojosells.com, mojosells.com, Mojo Sells. Another one is, what's the other one we used to use, Leo?
Well, I think it was Land Voice.
Yeah, no, there's a
Was it?
big one. We use it specifically for circle prospecting, and the name's slipping my mind now.
Cole Realty Resource.
Cole, there it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cole Realty Resource is another one. So feel free to check those out to get data. But here's how the script goes. Leo, you be the excuse me. Sorry, guys. A little rough here. Um, Leo, you be the seller. I'll be the agent, and we'll run through the script. Okay.
Okay.
So you're not gonna be interested this time, and then we'll do one where you are interested. Right.
Okay.
So all right, ring ring.
Hello?
Hey, my name's Michael. I'm a realtor in the area, and your neighbor's home just sold at 123 Main Street. Now, we have several other interested home buyers that also want to live in your neighborhood. So I was reaching out to all of the neighbors to see if anyone else is looking to sell their home in the near future.
I'm not really sure if I know anyone. We're not selling.
Okay, no, I certainly appreciate you thinking about that. Now, let me ask you this. If you were to get top dollar, would you consider selling?
I mean, I guess it depends how much, money we could get for this home.
Yeah, okay? So I'm going to go off script here a little bit. This is in the scripts,
Hmm.
but are you familiar? Just give me a no for right now, and then we'll come
Okay,
back
sure,
to
sure.
it.
Okay. No, not really. Not really thinking about it.
Okay, I completely understand and appreciate you taking some time to think about that. Now, one of the things I do offer is I put together a monthly market report that shows what all of the homes are selling for in your neighborhood. And I actually do this for quite a few of your neighbors. Would you be offended if I email that to you on a monthly basis?
I guess you can send that email.
Okay, fantastic. What's a good email that I could send that to?
It's leo@gmail.com.
Leo@gmail.com. Perfect. I'm going to get you set up on that monthly market update and I'll get that sent over to you every month. Out of curiosity, Leo, when you do decide to move, will you be staying in the same area or moving to a different area?
Well, I guess if that happens, it definitely would be in a different area.
A different area. Okay. What area do you
Mhm.
think you might want to move to?
Maybe Florida.
Oh, nice. Okay. What's
Yeah.
taking you to Florida?
Let's change the weather, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that makes sense. And do you think this is something you may want to do in the next year or further on down the road?
Further on, maybe 10 years down the road.
Okay, so it'll be a while, so about 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Well, here's what I'm going to do, Leo. I'm going to get you set up on this market report. Again, my name was Michael. And if you have any questions about the real estate market, just think of me as your real estate resource and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
No, sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right, Leo. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay.
Okay.
So how did that go? So that was a pretty simple script. Now, here's the thing. It's a couple of things. You might be like, oh, well, most people won't do that. You're right. That
Mhm.
conversation right there, if I talk to 10 people today, 3 of them might be like that. And 7 of them or 6 of them might be like, no, no, just go away, right? Hang up on me, stuff like that. So keep in mind, this is a numbers game. So with circle prospecting, here's an important stat. If I talk to 100 people, I could probably safely bet that I'm going to set 2 appointments from 100 conversations. So to keep that in mind, and there's a statistic too that 2% of sales are made on the first phone call. So if I talk to 100 people and I'm really good at my scripting, I could probably set 2 appointments. Now, what's going to happen though is I'm going to get 10 to 12 people out of that 100 that are probably going to say something similar to what Leo just said there. No, we're not interested. Sure, I'll take that monthly market update. Yes, we're thinking about selling down the road. So those are people I'm adding to my database, which is what I want. I want to fill my database up with prospective sellers. Even though Leo's 10 years down the road, he's probably closer to 5 years down the road. And if I intend to be in business 5 years from now, Leo's a good prospect for me. Right. So I look at that as a win. There's 3 things I used to do when I actively sold homes. I used to sell about 90 to 100 homes a year myself as a solo agent. And the 3 things I looked at every day was I need to sell a house today. That was my main focus. Every day I woke up, my focus was on selling a home today. And if I didn't sell a home, let's say in the beginning when I had no listings and no buyers, I couldn't sell a house, right? There was nobody to sell a house to. So the next best thing was I needed to go set an appointment to get in front of somebody. And then if the day ended and I didn't sell a house and I didn't set an appointment, my third best objective was how many people did I add to my database that would become future buyers and sellers down the road. So I would look at this as a win. If I talked to Leo today and he gave me that exact script and I added him to my pipeline, I just picked up a future person that I could sell a house to in the future. I need to go get 10 more of those today, though. All right. So I was focused on actively adding people to my pipeline every single day to get more business going. So any questions on that call right there? Something else to think about too is now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Bold Trail. I'm going to set him up on that monthly market update. And if you're not familiar with that, go to networkglobalagents.com under the Agent Quick Start, go to the Bold Trail, the Bold Trail section. And I'm going to set him up on a monthly market update where every month he gets an update with a market update from me. So that's going to keep me top of mind with Leo. And then I'll continue to follow up with him as well. Dallas, questions on that, Shante?
Not at this moment.
Okay, cool.
I have a question. If you are doing these circle calls and you haven't just sold a home in our neighborhood, could you use maybe our office as a
Yes.
substitute? If you
100%. You could even use just somebody else's house that sold. So
okay, gotcha.
you could go like a Coldwell Banker agent just sold a house in there. You could do that. And what you would say is you wouldn't say, yeah, you could just say I'm a realtor and your neighbor's home just sold. You could say that exact same thing. Because you're not saying you sold the house, it's just your neighbor's home sold.
Right, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this one. Leo says yes, he's interested. We'll dive into that one. All right, Leo, ring, ring.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm a realtor in the area, and your neighbor's home just sold at 123 Main Street. We actually have several other interested home buyers that also want to live in your neighborhood. So I was reaching out to all of the neighbors to see if you know of anyone else looking to sell their home in the near future.
Oh yeah, we would consider it.
Oh, really? So you think about wanting to sell potentially?
Yeah, my wife and I have been thinking about it for a while. I guess it just depends on how much we can get for this piece of property.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you aware of what your home could sell for in the market today?
Yeah, we had a previous agent that came by, but we didn't really like the price that he gave us. So
Yeah. What
yeah.
price did you have in mind that you'd like to get for your home?
Oh, I guess we would be comfortable with 350, but the
Yeah.
agent gave us 200, so nah,
Oh
we're not
wow.
gonna
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
that's a big difference. Where did you come up with the 350,000 number?
Yeah, I guess with the updates that we did on the home, we redid the kitchen, the roof, and all that good stuff. So it's just, I guess, the mathematics we did, my wife and I.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what if I did this, Leo? What if I just stop by your house? Maybe it'd only take about 10 or 15 minutes, and I could put together a market report and share with you everything that's selling in your area, so I could give you a really accurate indication of what your home could sell for in the market. Would you be open to that?
Oh yeah, would weekends work for you? Because my wife and I work during the
Yeah,
day. Yeah,
they absolutely would. I've got some availability Saturday. Would 10 o'clock work, or would maybe 11:30 be better for you?
10 o'clock works.
10 o'clock. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Let me do this, Leo. I'm going to put you down for 10 o'clock on Saturday. And if you don't mind, would you just share what's the best address for me to meet you at?
It's gonna be 123 Main Street.
123 Main Street. Fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So I'll see you Saturday at 10 a.m. at 123 Main Street. What I'd also like to do is send you a quick email with some information about myself. What's the best email to send that to?
It would be leo@gmail.com.
Leo@gmail.com. Perfect, Leo. So I'm going to send you an email with some information about myself, and I'll plan on seeing you and your wife Saturday at 10 a.m. Sound good?
Sounds perfect to me. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much. See you Saturday. Okay. A little off script there. But now here's the thing. Some of those conversations are just that easy, but it's like one or two in 100, right? Where it's just super easy. Like, yeah, it's funny you called. I'm actually thinking about selling my house right now. And so what I did there too is I don't want to dive super deep into like his pricing, where he wants to go, any of that. I'll do all of that on the appointment. What tends to happen is people will get an easy one like that and it feels too easy. And then they start thinking like they start trying to oversell. So Leo just handed me that appointment. I need to grab it and get off the call. I don't need to be like, oh, and my name's Michael again, and I sell hundreds of homes and my marketing plan and this and that and this and that, right? Like we don't need to oversell the call now. Just set the appointment, get off the call, and then you sell yourself on the appointment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Some people tend to talk themselves out of appointments because they talk too much. Right? They start rambling because they're like, oh my God, pardon my French, like, holy shit, I just set an appointment. Now I got to keep trying to sell. And no, you set the appointment, stop. Right? So just keep that in mind. We've script practiced with lots and lots of agents over the years. And that's the number one thing that happens. They get so excited that they got an appointment, they just keep talking and they keep talking and keep talking. It's like, shut up. You got the appointment. Stop. Right? So, okay. Now, here's another one here. If it's sold for over asking. So it's just, hi, my name is Michael. I'm a local real estate agent in the area. Here's the thing too. I keep my opening super short because I've got like 2 or 3 seconds to capture this person's attention before they hang up on me. So if I called and I was like, hey, my name's Michael Nettemeyer. I'm with a company called Network Global. How are you today? They're going to be like, shitty, goodbye, click. Right? Like, so we just roll into the script real quick and we get to the point as fast as possible. Like right here, I have to spit this out pretty quick because I've only got 2 or 3 seconds before they make a decision whether they're going to hang up on me or not. And keep in mind, with circle prospecting, you will get hung up on a lot. So as I mentioned, out of 100 calls, 2 are going to say yes, 10 to 12, 15 maybe will do something at some point in the future where you could set up on market reports. And the rest, a lot of them are going to be hangups. So just
Question,
keep that in
Michael.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever leave voicemails?
I
If
don't know.
you don't. Okay.
No, for 2 reasons. One, because even though like any data service you provide or you pay for should make sure they scrub against the do not call list. So that's very important. Don't call people in the do not call list. But so I don't leave it for that reason because mistakes still happen even with those services. And I don't want like my voicemail to be like, hey, this is Michael Dennemeyer, Network Global. I'm just going to set myself up for a do not call list violation, right? So, because like if they tell me, because that's the other thing too, if they're like, hey, I'm on the do not call list. Hey, I'm very sorry about that. I appreciate that. And I'll make sure I don't call you again. Have a great day. because that will happen too occasionally. People, and sometimes people just say it, like they're on it and they're not really. But
Yeah.
if somebody tells me they're on the do not call list, just end the call quickly and politely. Hey, I'm really sorry. I apologize. Have a great day. You know?
Mhm.
So no voicemails though.
Yeah.
But home sold for over asking, kind of the same thing. Hey, it's sold for over asking, and we have more buyers looking in the area. With this being a seller's market and homes selling for over asking, would you be willing to sell your home now if you could get top dollar for it? Right. So that's the big hook there, is like letting them know there are other buyers in the area, or maybe you have a buyer in the area. At which point you could call, hey, my name's Michael. I'm a realtor in the area. I've actually got a buyer looking to move into your area. I was curious if you'd consider selling if you could get top dollar for your home. All right, that's another quick little script. Now let's talk about some objection stuff. Okay, this is one I like to. And if you guys don't have access to the script book, networkglobalagents.com, under the documents and downloads, the script book's in there. It's got hundreds of scripts in there for everything. So make sure you grab that and download it. But here's some conversation stuff. So these are some little things you're going to need to know that you can flow into the conversation, right? Because here's the thing, that script that we did, it doesn't always flow exactly like that, right? You might get objections, you might get pushback, things like that. So here's one right now that's working really well in our market. So many of our clients, Leo might say something like, yeah, I don't know, we're thinking about selling, but we're not quite sure. I'm not sure if we're going to sell or not. Hey, I totally understand you're uncertain if you'd like to sell. And many of our clients were actually surprised to find that their homes were worth quite a bit more than they initially thought. So is there a price in mind that if you could get it, you might consider wanting to sell? They might say something like, yeah, if we can get 400, okay, 400,000, great. Now, currently there's a limited supply of inventory, meaning we're in a very strong seller's market, which means a lot of our sellers are putting their homes on the market and getting multiple offers and even over asking price. We're seeing some people get 10, 20, 30, even $40,000 more than what they were asking for their home. So if this were a situation where we could get you significantly more money for your home, would you be open to that? Most people will say yes. They'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, if they were kind of interested anyway. Well, yeah, I guess, it couldn't hurt to at least see. Well, let's do this. I'd like to stop by for just 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to put together a market report and share with you everything that's selling in your neighborhood. That way we can make a determination if 400,000 is doable or not. Would you have some availability later today, or would tomorrow be better? So a couple of things here too. When I set a listing appointments, it's always 10 to 15 minutes. Now, when I go on a listing appointment, it's always at least an hour. But I can get my whole listing presentation done in 10 to 15 minutes if they don't have questions, they don't want me to walk through the house. Like, I can do everything I need to do within 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm not lying to them. What tends to happen though is they have lots of questions. They're like, come, let's walk through the house, give me a tour, right? But I use my 10 to 15 minutes because and one time I had to do it in 15 minutes, and it's fine. A guy's like, hey, look, I don't have time. I was like, here's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how we're going to get your house sold. You ready to sign, right? So I can do it in 10 to 15 minutes. But if I tell them, yeah, it's going to take an hour, if I can come out for an hour and eat up an hour of your time, would that be okay? They're going to be like, 10 to 15 minutes. Everybody has 10 to 15 minutes. So I use that. And once you're there, it tends to run longer. And that's okay because they have questions, right? So just keep that in mind there. Hey, if I could just stop by for 10 to 15 minutes and share with you a market report on showing you everything that's selling in your neighborhood, would you be open to that? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Can you email it to me? I could certainly email it, but in order, this is another script, right? I don't know if it's in here or not, but if they're like, it's actually under the buyer script, but I could email it, but what I'd like to do is just do a quick walkthrough, and that way I could give you an accurate indication of what your home could sell for in the market. Does that make sense? Yes. What I also like to do is give them two options. So like at the end of my script here, two options for us to meet. Would you have some availability today, or would tomorrow work better? Keep in mind too, when you set appointments, the sooner you set it, meaning like if I set an appointment for today, there's like a 99% chance I'm going on that appointment. If I set it for tomorrow, my percent drops. If I set it for Friday, the percent of cancellation goes up. Right? If I set this appointment for next Friday, the probability of me going on that appointment and that appointment sticking is probably like 2%. Right? So the further out I set it, the further, and sorry, my camera's messed up. Look at that, it's all blurry. The further out I set this appointment, the higher the probability of it canceling. So I want to go on appointments today if possible, or tomorrow at the latest. Now, sometimes that they're like, yeah, weekend's the only time that works, this or that. But just keep in mind, the further out I set it, the higher the probability of that appointment not occurring. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So we want to set these
Michael,
quick. Yeah.
yeah, do you call prior to going there? Say, the day
Mhm.
of the appointment?
Yeah. So a couple of things I do. One, I send them an email with like an overview of what my listing services are. So like go watch the listing presentation we have in Network Global Agents if you haven't yet. And I would build an email based around that. Here's some things I'm going to do to help get your home sold. I send an email, I send a calendar notice from Google. And then if they accept it, that's a good sign, right? And then I text them too with my information. And then what I do as well is I do call them. If it's like an appointment today, no. If I set it for today, I'm not going to call. But if I set it for tomorrow, I'll typically send a text and just say, hey, looking forward to seeing you today at 10 o'clock. Hey, it's Michael Nettemeyer, Network Global. I'm looking forward to seeing you today at 10 o'clock to talk about selling your home. So I don't say, hey, does today at 10 still work? I just assume it still works, right? But I always will shoot that off. And most of the time they'll say, yep, sounds good. Or if they need to reschedule, but definitely confirm. Don't just go unless if it's not the same day. I used to make that mistake. I'm like, well, if I don't call and confirm, they can't cancel on me. And then I drive all the way there and they wouldn't be home. So I just wasted an hour of my time. Right. So definitely, but I shoot that text over. Hey, looking forward to seeing you today at 12 or tomorrow at 12, whatever the case is. I'll send that the day of the appointment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Good question. All right. So these are actually just some kind of live scenario stuff that we did, actually like how an actual call went. But let's talk about this one real quick. Pencil it in. This is a put off where people will say, yeah, you know what? It sounds really good. I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my spouse, whatever it is, right? So can I call you back? Now, if I leave them at that and they say, yeah, it sounds good. Let me talk to my wife and I'll call you back. And I say, okay, great. They're not going to call me back, right? The probability of them calling me back is pretty low. So this pencil it in script is good. So I'd say something like, Leo, totally understand you want your spouse to be a part of the process. I definitely want them to be as well. Hypothetically, if your spouse was on board, would a weekend or weekday work best for you? Weekends are good. Okay, great. Why don't we do this? Let's just pencil something in for, say, Saturday at 2 or 10, whatever time. And if you need to reschedule, just give me a call back. So now what I did there, and typically they'll say, yeah, that sounds good. I use this, we call it pencil it in. Let's just pencil it in for Saturday at 2. And that way they don't feel like they're fully committing. All right, so let's just pencil it in for Saturday at 2. And if you need to reschedule, give me a call back. So this tends to work well because I'm not relying on them. It's like the same way if you give somebody a business card, it's going to end up in the trash. If I tell them, right, where if I capture their information though, then I control how I follow up. But it's the same way with this. If I give them an option to just say, let's just pencil it in. We're not setting it in stone, right? We're just going to tentatively pencil it in for Saturday at 2. And they say, yeah, it sounds good. Most of the time, these appointments will stick, right? But sometimes they'll call you back and they'll say, hey, Saturday doesn't work. Can we do Sunday? Whatever the case may be. But if I rely on them just to call me back without kind of giving them some form of ownership on this appointment, right? Chances are they won't call back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So pencil it is a good one. Economic indicator, we're not going to use this one right now because the market's a little bit different than it was in the past. Here's one that comes up though. Where would I move to? So they're like, yeah, you know what? I'd consider selling, but where would I move to? It's hard to find a house. I don't know where I would go, things of that nature. So this was actually a live call that we recorded and then translated into a script. So it says, I'm open to the idea of selling, but I have no idea where I would go. Hey, I completely understand your concern with not knowing where you would go. And one of the things you could just say I actually specialize in is helping buyers find homes. And a lot of times I find them homes that are even off market. Are you familiar with off market properties? Now, let me get to the script and we'll talk about it. No, I don't know what that is. You see, these are properties of sellers that we have spoken to that would consider selling their home, but are not formally ready to list their house. We can actually match you with some of these sellers and get you access to these properties before they even hit the market. That way you're not competing in multiple offers. How does that sound? Yeah, it sounds pretty good. But one thing I'm struggling with, if it's such a seller's market and all of these buyers are paying so much over asking, is it even a good time to sell or buy? That's something that could come up, right? Well, the benefit right now is that the interest rates are still at historic lows. Now, They're not, right? So they're not, this is a script that's a little bit older. I will say this though, historically, and I talked about this, I think yesterday on the meeting, the average interest rate for the life of the mortgage is 8%. So we are below that, right? So historically we are still low, but what we would say is, I would go with something like this. Instead of the interest rate, I would say, with that said, I would say, well, they asked that question, with our ability to get you into properties before they hit the market, that's going to significantly reduce the risk of you overpaying for a home. Now, if we could get you a good deal on your house and get you locked into I wouldn't say interest rate now, but we could get you into a home that maybe we find that doesn't hit the market, you could see how that could be beneficial, couldn't you? So again, if by doing a lot of these circle calls, I talked to lots, we would talk to lots of sellers that would say, yeah, I might sell, but we don't want to list it yet. But I'm adding those people to my pipeline. And now if I get a buyer and let's say one of those properties matches, I could call that person and say, hey, I got a buyer that might be interested. Can we stop by and take a look? All right. And then I double side a deal. So just keep that in mind. That you're adding these people as you talk to these potential people that say, yeah, we might sell, but we're not ready to list yet. That's still very valuable to have them in your pipeline because you might be able to find them a buyer at some point. All right. So why don't we do this? Why don't I come out for 10 or 15 minutes and share with you what we can sell your home for, as well as finding out what's important to you in your next home. Does that sound good? Yep. Perfect. Questions on that? Off-market properties too, keep in mind, you can find off-market properties in the MLS under expireds, canceleds, withdrawns. Those are all properties of people that were considering selling. Their house didn't sell, but maybe they might be interested in selling still. So just keep that in mind too. Like you have access, even if before you make these calls, you do have access to off-market properties now. Expired and canceled, you can locate and call the sellers directly. If it's withdrawn means they still have an active agreement with their agent. It's just no longer in the MLS. So if you see a withdrawn listing, call the agent. If you see a canceled or expired, you have permission to just go try to call the seller directly if you wish. Right. So just keep that in mind with off markets. Here's something too I think is important to know. So currently interest rates are still low from a historical perspective. They are, right? And no one can anticipate, where they're going to stay or how they're going to go. But this is an interesting thing that I think it's important for everybody to remember. For every 1% in interest rate increases, a buyer loses 10% purchasing power. So that's just an important thing. So keep that in mind. If I have a $300,000 buyer right now looking and interest rates go up 1%, they actually lose 10% buying power. And it works in reverse too. If interest rates drop 1%, your buyer gains about 10% purchasing power. So my $300,000 buyer, if rates go up 1%, they lose 30 grand in purchasing power. If rates drop 1%, they pick up 30,000 in purchasing power. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Important little script, I think, to remember. Spring and summer. Here's another one. If we just listed the house. So if we just listed the house, I'm going to call, and maybe I'm going to call around in the neighborhood to see if anybody else would consider selling. Hey, this is Michael. I'm a realtor in the area. We just put your neighbor's home on at 123 Main Street for sale. Did you notice that it was now on the market? No, we didn't. No, totally appreciate that. Our team does everything we can do to get homes sold, and we know that the ultimate purchaser of a home is often a friend, family member, or acquaintance of somebody that already lives in the same neighborhood. So do you know anyone looking to move into the neighborhood? Right. So I'm going to call and ask, who do they know that's thinking about buying or selling? This is also something you can do if you go door knock as well. If they say, yeah, I know somebody or something of that nature, you can close. If no, I appreciate you thinking about that. Out of curiosity, if you could get top dollar for your home, would you consider selling? See, I'm always looking for new prospects, whether it's buyers, sellers. No, if they say no, again, I'm going to go with that market report to get them on the market report. All right. So the market report, again, is my way of filling my pipeline with potential buyers and sellers in the future. So just keep that in mind. The monthly market update, I think, is a really fantastic tool. Here's some talking points. There's a sample call in here.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Dallas.
Earlier, whenever you talked about circle prospecting and getting phone numbers from, I think you said Mojo.
Mojo Sells. Yeah, mojosells.com. Yeah.
When you get them on the phone and they ask, how did you get my number?
Yeah.
Even if somebody might be interested, they're going to wonder like how did you get a hold of me? So
Yes.
how do you kind of, you know, manage
Yeah,
that?
no, good call. So what it is, a lot of those services pull information from the tax records. I thought we had one in here about that. So what I say is, oh, we actually get your information through the tax records. And then I
Okay.
leave it at that and I keep moving with my script.
Roger.
I don't say like, oh, I pay for this service. I don't, because they pull the service we're paying for pulls data from the tax
Okay.
records essentially. And so that's what I would say there is. That's a good question. It does come up a lot. How'd you get my number? Oh, actually, I pulled it through the tax record. So out of curiosity, would you consider selling if you could get top dollar? Right? I kind of address it and keep moving,
Okay.
and most people don't have a problem. Now, if they start saying, well, I'm on the do not call list. Oh, you know what? I appreciate it. I do pay for a service that scrubs through the do not call list. So I'm very sorry. I appreciate you taking my call and have a great day. All right. So just make sure whatever service you pay does scrub against the DNC. It's not, I will say this, we've probably, with my team over like the decade, we were doing this at a real high level. I mean, probably like millions of phone calls. I had one do not call violation in all of those calls. One DNC ended up costing me like $7,000 or something, I think. So just be careful, right? It pales in comparison to like the millions of dollars we made doing these, but it still happened. And the guy we called was a lawyer that like did this professionally. He just basically sued people that called him. So it was kind of just bad luck, right? So don't use that as a reason not to call people. Just make sure you scrub against the DNC, and just keep in mind you probably won't have any issues, as long as you do it correctly. So.
And how like to scrub against Bold Trail doesn't do that at all?
Bold Trail doesn't pull the data for this, no. So like you have to like pay for like a third party service to get this information,
Mm-hmm.
and that third party service you're paying will scrub it for you, or
Okay.
just make sure they scrub for you, right? Like
Roger.
before you pay for anything, I would ask, hey, do you guys scrub against the DNC, and make sure that they do.
Copy that.
Yeah. But like Mojo does, that Cole Realty Resource does, Land Voice is another one you can pull data from. They all scrub against the DNC. RedX is another service you can use to get data. Keep in mind too, these scripts work for door knocking. Like door knocking, people don't like to do, but door knocking can be super, super effective because you're getting face to face with people. And just something that it kind of sucks. I get it, but hey, you get some exercise. And there was a guy like 10 years ago or 11, maybe more than that now. I went to this seminar, and there was a guy that door knocks 4 hours a day. So he had like 5 subdivisions that he would work. So he would door knock the first subdivision. Once he got through it, he'd go to the second subdivision, door knock it. Once he finished with his 5th subdivision, he'd start all over at the first one because it would take a couple months to get through all of them. Built a huge business from door knocking. Like, it's amazing. Like, you just walk up and say, hey, just curious. Hey, my name's Dallas. I just want to introduce myself. I'm a realtor. I work in the area. I was curious, homes are selling for top dollar in your neighborhood. I was curious if you think about selling at this time. No, we wouldn't. Totally appreciate you thinking about that. And out of curiosity, would you, at some point in the future consider, right? Yeah, maybe in 2 years. Well, one of the things I offer is I put together a monthly market update, keeping you up to date with everything selling in the neighborhood. Would you be offended if I email that to you on a monthly basis? No, that'd be fine. Great. What's a good email I can send that to? Great. My name is Dallas. Again, your name, right? Now you have their name, their email, their home address, potentially their phone number, and you got somebody to add to your pipeline. So just keep in mind these circle calls. What I would say is like door knocking, of course, is slower. I could crank out 100 or 200 phone calls today where I probably couldn't door knock 100 doors today. Maybe I could, I don't know. But door knocking, you're getting face to face with people. So just something to keep in mind too. Questions on any of this?
Dallas is asking all my questions, so good job, Dallas.
Oh, cool. Perfect. It works. I will say it works. It's a numbers game, right? So it's one of those things where it works, but be prepared to get a lot of rejection, but just know going in it. Real estate is full of rejection though, right? Like that's one thing you just have to get comfortable with is you have to get comfortable with people telling you no. And that's okay because we know it's a percentage thing. It's the same thing with internet leads. The bulk of the internet leads are going to say no, right? But I know if I make enough effort and talk to enough people, I'm going to get enough people. Like that's one of the ways I started listing lots and lots of homes was I just got rejected and got comfortable getting rejected over and over and over and over again. I might have got rejected 80 times in a day, but then I got one win, and one win made me $8,000. You know what I mean? So like if I stack that up enough over the course of a week, I might get rejected hundreds of times, but I may have set 2 or 3 appointments. Over the course of a month, I might have got rejected thousands of times, but maybe I set 8 or 10 appointments in that month, or 12 or more. Right? So it's one of those things where you have to get comfortable facing rejection. And the more comfortable you get with it, you just build more business. Like I still make lead generation calls to agents today. I get rejected every single day still, and it does not faze me one bit anymore. In the past, it did. Like I would call an expired and they'd be like, F off, or, and I would just be like, oh, I'd be sitting there with, $2 in my checking account, getting rejected for the 87th time. And you feel defeated, but then you'd get a win, right? And then you get another win and another win. And then you become kind of numb to the rejection. It doesn't even matter anymore. Like somebody's like, F off. Okay, thank you. Have a great day. And then call the next person. All right. Like I used to teach some of this and like I would script practice with people like in an office, and they'd be like, I did a script with the guy one time, and I was like, ring, ring. He's like, no, not interested. Hung up. Right. And everybody laughed and they're like, oh, how do you handle that? What do you do? I call the next person. What else could I do? I'm not going to call the guy back. He just told me to F off and hung up on me. I'm going to call the next person though. Right. And that's all you do is like, okay, thank you. Have a great day. Next person. And what I would say too is if you will have people that get like really angry sometimes. Don't take it personal. Don't buy into it. Don't get angry back at them. I've had agents do that too. They're like, oh, and they start like barking back at the person. No, just stay cool. Hey, totally understand. I apologize. Have a great day. All right, move on to the next person. Don't be like, well, F you too. Like I've had agents do that. They take it super personal. What I say is this, keep this in mind. If somebody is that angry that you made a phone call to them, because sometimes it does happen. If they're that angry that you called them to ask them if they would consider selling their house, chances are they're not angry at you. There's something else bigger going on in their life, and they're taking it out on you right now. So just keep that in mind. They're not angry at me calling them, asking them to sell their home. If they're really that furious, like there's something else going on in their life that they're really concerned, like much bigger. So just wish them well. Hey, appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you. All right. And so just keep that in mind. Don't let these calls get personal. Don't let them affect you. These people don't know who you are. Because I used to do that. I would get I would get beat down sometimes until I started getting more wins though. And then you realize it doesn't even matter. Like if somebody's angry at me, okay, thanks. Have a great day. They don't know who I am. Have a great day. Wish you well. Take care. Call the next person. All right. But the more you do this and the more you become kind of numb to the rejection, the more success you'll have. Because it works. But just keep in mind, it's a percentage thing. If I make 100 calls today, talk to 100 people, I might set 1 or 2 appointments, and I might add 10 to 12 people to my database. And then I might have 70 plus people reject me. But if I get rejected 70 times a day, but set 1 or 2 appointments a day, I can build a really good business. So just keep that in mind. It's a numbers game. Thoughts or questions on it?
I have a question with the door knocking. Do you take some type of literature or any kind of hard information, or just go and talk off, scribble?
Yeah,
door knocking?
you definitely can. So I never did like a ton of door knocking, but I did it early on, and it does work. I didn't have any money, so I didn't have any literature. So I would just basically like take MLS stats and comps and know what was going on in their neighborhood. And I would just talk to them. I'd say, hey, actually, yeah, 2 properties recently sold in here. They both sold for over asking, or back then they didn't, right? But they were listed at not, 400,000. They actually sold for 387. This one sold for X, so I would just know about the neighborhood and have conversations about the neighborhood because I didn't have money to like invest in fancy marketing. And it worked really well. What I found was that when I did start leaving marketing material, I rarely got callbacks on it if they didn't answer the door. So if I just left something on their door, it usually probably ended up in the trash. So I focused on the people that opened the door and that I talked to, not like just blanket canvas, leave a little door knob. Like I get those things all the time from like landscaping companies and, and usually they just end up in the trash if they hang it on my door. So I like to know, what I would recommend is know everything that has gone on in their neighborhood, maybe in the last 12 months, or at least in the last 6 months, So you know everything that's sold, anything active, anything under contract, and be prepared to have a conversation with them about that as well. Because they
Okay.
might ask, well, yeah, I saw that one down the street. What did that sell for? Actually, yeah, listed right here. It listed at 400, sold for 410 in 3 days on the market, information like that. And then it's a good way too to like capture their info. It's the same way I never carry business cards, because what I do when people say, do you have a card? Actually, I don't have a card on me, but here's what I can do. I can text you my information. What's a good number that I can text that to? And then I capture their information, and now I can follow up with them and not rely on giving them a card and maybe it ends up in the trash or it gets lost. I use that all the time. Actually, I don't have a card on me, but here, I'll text you my contact info. What's the best number to text it to? Now, at least I have their name and phone number, and I can control how I follow up with them. I'm not relying on them to call me back, right? So something to keep in mind. Hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions? Was this kind of helpful?
Yes, it was helpful.
Good. The biggest thing is just practicing. Practice, 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 practice. The more you practice, I used to just read scripts here. I would just read these things out loud to myself over and over and over again. Get somebody to practice with, right? Because the more you flow on it, the more you practice it. Like right now, if you call and you hadn't practiced this, you might get a lot of uhs and ums in your scripting, right? Like I had agents that would try to wing it when they would join us. They would try to wing these scripts and like close the book and be like, oh, I got this. And then they forget where to go. They would start being like, right? When you start saying all that uncertainty comes out, and the person's like, oh, does this person really know what they're talking about? Or they would hang up the call, and maybe I gave them an appointment, but they didn't get the address. They didn't get the email. They didn't, like they're like, oh crap, yeah, I didn't get any of that. So don't try to wing it. Just really practice the scripts and study them. What I used to do too is I would have my script book in front of me all the time. And then when I would call, let's just say I was calling it expired, they'd say, oh no, I'm going to stick with the same agent. I could flip directly to that script and I would give my script right there verbatim. Hang on, guys. Sorry, this other phone's ringing. So I would have my little scripts tagged for any objection. And that's the nice thing about these. When you make these calls, you're only going to get a handful of objections ever. So we got phones are ringing like crazy this morning. Can you end that, Leo? Sorry.
Yes, sir. All good.
Well, it's still ringing on my end. I don't know. But anyway, can you guys hear that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right, just on me then. But yeah, practice, 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 practice. The more you practice these, the better you're going to get, especially to the presentation. Go watch the listing presentation videos. Get really good. And what I would say is this, like early on in my career, I was terrible on the phones. But what I would do is I would just read. I would read my scripts, right? And then eventually I started to like get better on the phones and I started setting more appointments. And then I would go on the presentation and I was terrible on the presentation. So I had to practice that. And then I started practicing the presentation and I got good at that. And then I was terrible at pricing homes. So then I would list properties and they wouldn't sell. And I was really bad at getting price adjustments. So I had to work on that and get better at that. And then eventually it just all started to come together. I started to plug the holes. I got really good on the phones. I got good in the presentation. I got good in pricing. Or if I overpriced it, I got good at getting a reduction quickly. And I started selling more homes. So it's all a process. But the more you practice this stuff, I have agents that they've been in the business a long time. And they're like, oh, scripts don't work. I don't script practice this or that. And I'd ask them, how long did it take you to start making money in real estate? Well, I was able to go full time after 6 years. Okay, cool. I didn't have 6 years, right? I had to make money in year one. Like, so think about that too. You get agents that are like, oh, scripts don't work. I've been doing this 20 years, but they had a shitty business the first 8 years, right? They worked 2 jobs the first 8 years. Like, we want to have a good business in year one, right? And the way we do that and the way we sound better and more professional is by practicing our scripts and getting really good at it. You can become an agent within the first 30 days. You can sound more seasoned than a 10-year agent in this business because you practice these things and you know what to say. And that's what you want. Like when I was there, I was very young when I got into real estate and I looked young. And before I was good at my scripting, people would always ask, how long have you been doing this? Because I looked young. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had all the uncertainties of the uhs and the ums and right. And then once I got really good at this, it never came up again Nobody ever asked, how long have you been doing this? They just be like, oh, he's a sharp young man. Because I knew the objections, I knew how to overcome them, I knew how to talk to them without having uncertainty. So that's why I say scripting is so important, because if you can dial these scripts in, you can sound more professional and more knowledgeable than a 10-year, 20-year agent within a short period of time. So just keep that in mind. This stuff cuts the learning curve. And what happens is when you really internalize them, that's when you can start to actively listen, because before you internalize these scripts, you're talking and then they're responding. You're not listening to what they're saying. You're thinking about what you're going to say next, because you're still not dialed in. So once you have these scripts really dialed in, you can actively listen to actually what they're saying, and then be able to maybe overcome that objection or address that objection. Because like, it doesn't matter what they say, you're going to have a response to it. All right. So just keep that in mind. The more you practice this stuff and the better you get at it, it'll be a game changer in your business. It really will. It can help cut the learning curve. You can start selling more houses. Like Joe Geary, an agent with us, he started with us when he was 19 on my team. He's probably the number 2 agent in the company right now, I think. He might be number 1 for number of homes sold. He's 26 now. He started with, I think, 26. He started with us when he was 19. But this is the stuff we did every single day. We practiced this stuff every single day, and he got really, really good at it really quick. By his second year, he was crushing it, selling 40, 50 homes a year. And he still does today. So just keep that in mind. Like, he's a great testament to this. He practiced this stuff. He took it serious. He practiced his listing presentations. He got really good at it, and he has a really good business today because of it. So just keep that in mind. Questions or thoughts? I'm done rambling.
No, but I know at least for the next week or more, well, I'm going to be practicing my scripts every day. Look at it.
Nice. Good.
Yep.
Yeah, it works. It really does. Just read them to yourself, read them out loud. The more you practice them, the better you're going to get. Dallas, question?
Yeah, I actually called a FSBO the other day and was very lucky. I actually got to go see the place.
Nice.
It was kind of a unique situation. It's an older lady living there, and it's her son in Atlanta that's selling the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did pretty good throughout the process, but I think where I failed was asking for the business. So I went and I saw the property, and then I called, and I gave him my recommendations for what he could do without me, what he could do with me, asked him a bunch of questions. And then the last thing I asked him is, how long would you have it on the market before you would consider using a realtor? And I think that's probably where I should have asked for his business instead of asking, how long would you go without me? What was
his response, Dal? What was his response when you asked that?
He said 3 or 4 weeks, and then
Okay.
then he would be looking for a change.
Perfect. How long ago was that? Last week?
Yesterday.
Okay. So what I would do is next week, call him and check in,
Okay.
and then check in every week.
All right.
Like, FSBOs are definitely a follow-up game. It's one of those things where you don't have to push super hard, because how long has he had it on the market?
Only 10 days.
Yeah. So it's probably not enough time yet for him to be discouraged. But
Yeah.
chances are within about 20 days, 3 weeks, he's going to start to get discouraged.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind too. When they first list the property, when they're new to the market, they're optimistic. Hey, I'm getting all these realtor calls. Realtors are calling me and telling me they have buyers. They're not bringing any buyers, but they're coming by and saying they have buyers, right? Like, that's the one thing too, when we talk about FSBOs. Like, I was taught early on to basically lie to them and say, hey, I've got a buyer, but I don't know if it's a good fit. I need to come see your house. And that's a script. It's a very common script that a lot of agents use in our industry. I don't like it, because you're basically lying to them. And so, but I did that. I was taught that. And so I did that early on. And then I did it like 3 times, maybe 3 or 4 times. And the 4th time I was on the appointment, and like, we're walking through the house, and the lady's like, here's the pantry. Here's the kitchen I updated. It's an updated kitchen 20 years ago. Right. And then she said, yeah, well, if I list it, my sister's an agent, I'll list it with her. And so I was like, why am I even here? Like, I'm wasting her time. I'm wasting my time. I don't have a buyer. So I shifted my whole script away from that after that. And I just went into it with, look, if I could help you get your home sold and net you the same amount or money or more money by taking all of the hassle off your plate and still paying my fee, if you can net the same or more, would you consider it? right? So I started just getting very direct and open with them. But I do think, Dallas, the more people you get in front of right now being newer, the better. So props to you for setting that appointment. That's awesome. That's a big win. Now the name of the game with him is just follow up, because he will get discouraged, right? If the house doesn't sell, he's going to get discouraged, and you want to be the guy that he says, yep, Dallas, come on, I'm ready to list. And that would happen a lot. I would set FSBO appointments, and then they'd be like, yeah, we're not ready to list it yet. We're getting a lot of activity. And then every week that goes by, they lose momentum, and they lose kind of like the confidence in them being able to sell it. So finally, by about week 3 or 4 is probably when they're going to say, yep, come on out, Dallas, we're ready to list it. So just keep that in mind. Good job on that, though. That's awesome.
Congratulations. I have a question. I'm on Zillow, and I think that's where you said we should go for
So you think,
FSBO.
sorry,
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I think you
Oh.
froze for a minute, Dallas, maybe.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having the internet issues.
No, all good, all good. But yeah, Shantae, yeah, Zillow, yeah, it's a good place to find FSBOs.
So
Yeah,
what
free.
is the best way? Because I'm like kind of all over the place here on Zillow. What is the best way to weed out the for sale by owners?
So
I'm
if you
on
go
the website and
Yeah, if you go to Zillow, can you guys still see my computer or my screen?
go back up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So here's what I would do. I would just type in you could type in sorry, my wife wants to move to Florida, so I'm looking at houses. No, we're not moving, but in the future we'll retire there. Okay. So I went to buy, and then I went to for sale by owner right here. And then I just typed in St. Louis Mo Homes, and wait a minute. And these are not FSBOs, are they?
Because I went to
Hang on a sec. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's the FSBOs here for St. Louis. You can type in zip codes, you can type in, but this is a free way to get them that I think works well. Or you can pay for a service like Mojo Sells, RedX, LandVoice. They all sell FSBO data as well.
okay.
Sean, you still with us, Shantae?
Yeah, I'm still with you. So you just when I have my desktop. So you just went to buy, and then when I went, I see how you got to it now.
Yeah, just for sale by owner.
Okay, real
And then
estate
just
agent.
type in a zip code or the county or,
Damn, Michael, I went on the buy and I don't see. Okay, there it is. I had to hub over the buy thing. Okay, I see it. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can click on it. It should have the homeowner information in here.
Okay.
Yeah, property owner right there.
Gotcha.
So you just call the number. So that's a simple free way to do it, and that's what I recommend too. That's what I did early on in my career. I did everything I could for free, because I didn't have any money. And then once I started getting money, I invested into basically systems, right? That made life easier. I paid for RedX back in the day, which then dumped all the expireds, the for sale by owners, all of that. And I could just log in and start calling people. But early on, I would use as many free resources as possible. And then as I started leading with revenue, I would pay for more systems to help me kind of streamline my business.
So would you agree that I should have directly asked for his business?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's okay. If he tells you 3 or 4 weeks, you could say that, is there anything I could do today to earn your business?
Yeah.
Or if it would be possible for us to list your property and sell it for more money potentially while still paying my fee, would you be open to that? Right? And maybe you could list it a little bit higher, net him the same amount or more. Because when people ask that too, they're like, well, how would you net me more money? Well, right now you're currently advertising on Zillow, correct? Yes. Are you advertising on any other websites? No. One of the ways is when you list with me, I'm actually going to get your home on over 350 different real estate related websites. And keep in mind, 97% of home buyers start their search online. So right there, I'm going to open it up and cast a wider net. What I'm also going to do is 33% of home sales actually occur from realtors interacting with one another. So I'm going to get it in the MLS. I'm going to get your property in front of the 12,000 plus agents that are out there. I'm going to utilize a tool we have called reverse prospecting, which means once I list your home in our MLS, I'm going to see every agent potentially as a buyer for your home because they set their buyers up with home searches in our system. And I'm going to start calling those agents to get their buyers in here to see your house. So you can see by listing with me, I'm going to be able to cast a very wide net and get you access to a lot more qualified buyers than just Zillow. And that would be beneficial, wouldn't it?
Of course.
So there we go. Keep in mind too, I'm going to take all of the hassle off of your plate of having to deal with this on, selling yourself as well. I'm going to handle all of the contract negotiation, the inspections, everything that comes with selling a home. So if we can net you more money while still paying my fee, it would make sense for you to list your property today, wouldn't it?
Of course.
Cool. Sign the papers. All right. So yeah. So just keep that in mind. So you're fine though, Dallas. Like just now is a follow-up game.
Yeah.
Right. I would check in with him weekly. Hey, how's everything going? Are you getting any interest? Right. And then just go from there. Yeah.
I would also ask at what point and how would you negotiate the buyer's agent commission in the FSBO?
Yeah. So if they say, well, I'll pay you something, or what do you mean?
Yeah, so I get this guy, his name's Dan. I get Dan on the phone again, and he's ready to list with me. At what point and how do I discuss with him what he's going to pay the buyer's agent?
I wouldn't even worry about it. Only focus on what you're getting paid now.
Copy.
So when he says, so what's his name?
Dan.
Hey, Dan, look, when you list with me, the investment in my service is 3.3%. And so that's all you're going to have to pay me. And then what we're going to do is when we receive an offer, the probability is high that buyer may ask for you to cover some of their seller or some of their agent compensation. But again, that's completely negotiable, and we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay.
So like in the past, in my opinion, things have gotten way easier now. Like in the past, I would have to go on an appointment and get 6%. Right. Hey, I charge 6%. Of that, I'm going to pay 2.7 out to the buyer's agent. Now it's just, I'm only fighting for my fee. Right.
Yeah.
The buyer agent's going to fight. They can send me a broker compensation rider for 3%, 2.5, 2.7. And then my seller has the option to counter that. And so I'm not really worried about that anymore. I'm focused on what do I need to get paid. Right.
Roger.
And then most of the time, what I find too, though, so I wouldn't worry about that. Like I would just address your compensation and let them know when we get an offer, the probability is high that the buyer may ask for us to cover their agent compensation. And the reason they're going to ask is because that's the way things have been done forever. But again, that's a negotiation point, and we can address that when the time comes.
So you would wait for that offer to come in before you have that conversation?
That is correct. I would let them know it's probably going to happen, so we need to be open to it.
So
But because the thing is, let's say I went on the appointment now and I said, okay, it's 3.3 for me, and then let's pay 2.7 to the buyer agent. And they say, yeah, that's fine, no problem. But there's nothing in our listing agreements that documents that in writing that we're paying out 2.7%. Right? There's only a box that gets checked that says owner is willing to compensate. So now if I tell the agent, yeah, we're paying out 2.7. Well, one, no, we're not, because it's only verbal. There's nothing written. And then two, if they submit the broker compensation rider with 2.7, and then your seller says, well, this offer is not that high, I only want to pay 2%. They're going to say, well, you said you're paying 2.7. Right? It's like, so I don't even worry about the buyer compensation anymore. I only go out and get what I want to get paid.
So let me ask you, so if you don't worry about, at what point does that conversation come up? Like say if they get an offer, do we wait on the other agent to ask for compensation?
Yeah, because they're going to submit their broker compensation rider with their offer.
Okay.
So I just use it as a point where like the offer comes in. Okay, we got an offer. We have a $400,000 offer. They're asking on their broker compensation rider, the buyer is asking you to compensate their agent 2.7%. They're not asking for any closing costs. I just go through the offer. And then they're like, okay, we want to counter. We're good with the 2.7 and we want to counter at, 405 or whatever. Right. So what I'm seeing is, and I don't sell a ton anymore, but I wrote one for my friend the other day for like 1.1 million. And I asked for 2.7 and they countered me at 2.5. I was fine. No big deal. Whatever. Right. And so but a lot of times I'm seeing sellers, if their price is good, they're like, no, just take it. Let's take the offer. And they're not countering that broker compensation. But my point is, if I'm going on the listing now, I'm only concerned with what I want to get paid. I'm not worried about the buyer agent. The buyer agent can, that's the way it's structured now, is that the buyer agent needs to go on their buyer consultation, get their buyer agency agreement signed for whatever percent they want to get paid. And then it's their responsibility to submit that broker compensation rider with the offer. So at the listing appointment, I'm telling them it's 3.3% to work with me. And then when we get an offer, the probability is high that the buyer will ask for us to cover, for you to cover their buyer agent compensation. So, but again, that's a negotiation point, and we'll address that once we get an offer.
So in the listing appointment, you're giving them a heads up, but not at all like talking about percentage. Just
correct. If they ask, well, what would that be? Typically, it's somewhere between 2 and 3%. But again, it's negotiable.
Gotcha.
Because some agents might submit 2.5, some might submit 2.7, some might submit 3%. It just really depends. So you can give them a range,
Yeah.
right? But also letting them know that it's negotiable.
Good deal.
Yeah. And then the same way with our buyer agency, when we meet with our buyers now, we get our buyer agency agreement signed. We can let them know, look, the investment in my service to work with me is 3% or 2.7 or however much you want to be compensated. Now, most of the time, in most scenarios, we're going to be able to get the seller to cover this. But in the event they decide not to, this is a fee that you might be responsible for. But most scenarios, we're going to be able to get this covered. And if not, if the seller's not willing to cover it, we'll address that at time after we submit the offer, and we can talk through that. So like it's rare that a seller is going to counter back 0, and then it's just a business decision. If I got my buyer agency is 3%, I submit my offer for my buyer with a broker compensation rider of 3%. They counter me back at 2.7 or 2.5. It's a business decision. Then am I okay with that? Or do I want my buyer to make up the difference? Or do I want to counter back it? You know what I mean? So again, in my opinion, if I wrote it at 2.7 or 3% and they counter it, I'm probably okay with it at 2.5, and I'll just say, yep, we're good with it. Let's move forward. Again, business decision. I was always an agent that like built on volume, so like I didn't like, there's the old expression, like you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. I think a lot of agents do that where they're like, well, no, that extra 0.2%, it's $400. It's like, who cares? Go sell another house. I was always like, it's I guess an example too with our brokerage. I don't charge the agents a whole lot. I build this thing on volume, right? We got to do hundreds of transactions to really make a lot of money, and that's cool. We'll go do it. So I never got stuck on the little percentages. 3%, they're going to pay me 2.7. Cool. I'm good with it. Let's move on. All right. So like, but some agents are like, no, I want that extra 0.3, and that's cool. Like, that's totally fine. Go get it, But again, business decision based on how you want to do it. Questions? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me personally, I think from a listing perspective, it's way easier now to list properties and get like 3.3% or even higher, because the sellers are so used to hearing 6%. Now it's like, oh, okay, 3.3. Yeah, cool. 3.5. Great. So it's actually a lot easier to go get listings than it was in the past, in my opinion. But questions or thoughts?
Michael, did we find out? Yeah, just one thought. I know you said Leo used to do this. Do we find out if we have anyone to input? Like, say if we get listings, do we still have anyone with our company that does?
Oh yeah, we're gonna roll that out again. $99 for a listing input.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And just you can send an email if you want to use that. You can either text the office or send an email to Compliance and Network Global.
Email to compliance. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions or thoughts?
We gonna get to SOI scripts today?
Not today. No, we won't get to them today. We'll do it next time though. We'll do the SOIs.
Roger.
Cool. All right. Yeah, we're a little over an hour, so we're gonna wrap it up. But yeah, we'll crank on those next script practice. We'll do SOI.
Good deal.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Guys, thanks so much. Have a great day.
you.
We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.
Bye.